some interesting.
Did you just post it?
Oh,
It should get some interesting commentary.
I did not see it, actually.
Yeah, I literally just posted it like 4 seconds ago. I was feeling some kind of way. Anyhow, we could talk about that some other time. How perfect do we expect our pastors to be? But today we're talking about friendship, and then after I hang up from you guys, I get to get on the line and talk about Ferguson, Missouri. That should be fun. That should be fun. I don't know if CJ's going to get on for that one, though. I don't know. Either way. So it's just the three of us, and we're talking about friendship. Talking about friendship. David, are you frozen? Hello? 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 I think he's frozen,
I
Kara.
think so too. Otherwise, he's freaking us out.
Are you in your bedroom this time?
I am, yeah, because Asher's still awake.
Oh,
So
no.
I was downstairs with him, so I had to
Okay.
find
Am I back?
It's much less echoey where you are today.
Oh, well, good. It's
Really
a smaller room, so I guess that works.
Yeah, you're back, David. I don't know where you went.
Just the Wi-Fi's acting up.
Oh, I can't hear you, David.
The Wi-Fi is
Wi-Fi's
acting up.
Okay. I can hear you.
Perfect.
I hear him.
Okay, so yeah, talking about friendship, I listened to a podcast recently about friendship, and that kind of spurred this topic. Noted, really don't have a lot of friends. And when I was younger, I mean, it was just like I'd run up to someone and be like, "You're gonna be my friend," and we were just friends, and that was it. And now, as an adult, not so many friends. But hold on, let me get to the answer or the questions that. Okay, so the questions I sent the questions earlier. Did you get them, guys?
I did indeed.
I sent an email. Okay.
Yes.
All right, so yeah, let's talk about our friendships as children. I guess I'll start off since I'm already talking. When I was a kid, it was really cool because I moved around. It was cool and not cool. My dad was military, and I said that in podcasts before, so we moved around every 4 years. So every 4 years, I got a whole new set of friends, which is kind of cool because around about 4 years, I was getting tired of the old friends, right? And so it's like, bam! New friends, new kid on the block, get to be cool, get to find out about this new culture and these new people, and especially as a kid, let's just be honest, I was shallow, so it's like new toys, kids who have new toys, because I got tired of playing with my friends' GI Joes. I got to go over to this other kid's house now, and he had new GI Joes, or he had GI Joe and He-Man, and so but friendship was so easy when I was a kid. It was just like you'd walk up to someone and say, "You're going to be my friend," or you just start talking to them as if you were already friends. And that was just friendship. And don't even get me started on best friends. Like, "Oh, you're my best friend." Everybody was your best friend growing up, at least for me. Everybody was my best friend. I don't think I had I don't think I had one best friend. I think I had like 20 best friends, which is funny because I had 20 friends. So they were all my best friend. But that's just kind of how things were as kids. It was so much easier, and then you get to high school, and yeah, you start to kind of pair off, and there's cliques and stuff like that, but you still kind of had your core friends who you hung out with. The same thing in college. So yeah, it was always easy for me to make friends as a kid, always.
I don't think you expect a lot out of your friends when you're a kid. They just need to be close by, and their parents will let them hang out with you. I was friends with all the kids in my street. I mean, we're all different age groups, and we would, build forts and play house, and we would do, anything. And it's funny because, like, you grow up and get in high school, and even now I look back and think, or I'm Facebook friends with these people I was friends with as a kid, and realize, like, those friendships didn't continue for whatever reason. We kind of went our own ways, and you get your own interests, and you start to expect a lot more of your friends than just being nearby. But yeah, friendships as kids, you just want someone to hang out with. You just want someone to have fun with.
I don't know if I have any sort of relatable experience with the friend thing growing up. Are you guys able to hear me okay, by the way? Perfect. Because I'm sort of like, where do you draw the line, you know? Was it back when I was in Indonesia, or is it after I came to the States? I think in Indonesia, with the Christians, there was sort of a commonality if we were all Christians. Um, and so, you know, you had sort of like a trust and a solidarity with that. I had a hard time, I think, being friends with Muslims growing up because, and just because of religious and cultural tensions. The kids who came by our house and threw racks at us sort of firmly established this idea of there was sort of an other group. And it was sort of looking back on it, I had been otherized and in turn had otherized other people. And so that was a dynamic which was introduced at a very, very early age. So sort of with friends, it was other people who were like me. And I mean, I remember feeling safe around them, and I think that when my feelings were most hurt growing up, which I think tells a lot, you know, how do you get hurt about what you're expecting from your friendships. When if I felt like I was included in something larger than myself, that was great, and when I felt like I was excluded, that was terrible. So I think for me, the feeling of being included in something, which probably touches on how different it was coming back to America being third culture. I came back to America at the end of 4th grade, and by the end of 5th grade, I had a definitive concept that people were basically evil, that they began out good, and by the time they hit about 3rd or 4th grade, that they just became horrible humans. And I think by the time middle school ended, I could safely say I had maybe 2 friends, and I actively hated humans. I think it was the same sort of otherization, not to the same degree, but it was a similar thing, not being part of the community and being forced out from it, had sort of created that perspective. So I think to this day, that's probably jumping ahead, but in high school and onward then, friendships sort of didn't end up meaning included in something. It meant not being pariah-sized. I think that my experience with that was because I was third culture, but I don't think that's an uncommon experience for people. I don't think that's probably going to be an uncommon experience for anyone of a culturally diverse background in a cultural monogamous community. And I don't think that's going to be, I think that's going to be the experience of anyone who struggles with disorders, or in some communities it would be a race problem. I would speculate that sense is probably fairly common in formative friendships. It related to bullying, of course, but nevertheless.
Yeah, I was definitely like catching a bullying thing there, and we could talk about bullying in a minute. But that's really interesting to me because, like, yeah, that's so different than my experience in terms of, yeah, again, everybody was just my friend. And when I said I had 20 friends and they were all my best friends, I honestly had more than 20 friends. Everybody was my friend. I was one of those guys that if you described me in a novel, I was a guy, you know, Calvin was the kind of man who never met someone he didn't like. That would be the description of me, my character in a novel if you were going to write about me, because that's really who I am. That's what I'm all about, and or what I was all about as a child. And so I was always friends with people. And so yeah, I think when you got older, when you started getting older, and you started getting twinges of it in, I mean, you kind of got some stuff in elementary school, you know, where you'd get teased by other people, whether it was for some, generally it was like for some physical feature or clothing that you were wearing or something like that. Or like the rich kid who's got all the nice clothes is making fun of your ugly clothes, things like that. And then you had, you know, when you got into middle school, and you started becoming more aware of yourself. Like I started becoming more aware of my body in middle school, and what I looked like and what I felt like, and started breaking out in zits, and my teeth were all crooked, and I had these big Coke bottle glasses. So easy things for people to point at and make fun of. And so all of a sudden, I wasn't friends with everybody, and conversely, not everybody was friends with me. And then when you get into high school, it just got even more difficult. I went to a small private school, and if you weren't part of a group called the Fab Five, they were the guys who played basketball. So when you went to a small private Christian high school, like you had to play sports. You had to letter in one sport each year, and it was just kind of dumb, but whatever. And so there was this group of cool guys, and they were called the Fab Five, because this was back at the time when University of Michigan had a team, had a group of guys called the Fab Five, and I believe Chris Webber was on the team at that point. And so these guys called themselves the Fab Five. And I came into this situation moving from North Carolina to Michigan. These guys had all grown up with each other. I hadn't grown up with them, so it was hard for me to break in, and I never did. I never did break into that group, but I did have friends later on, but that was where I really kind of had my first inclination of not belonging, not being friends with everyone. But that being said, there were still my friends from high school. There were the group of people that I did become friends with that, you sign your yearbook at the end of the year, never change, always going to be friends, always going to be buddies, always going to stay connected. And we didn't. I'm not friends with anybody from high school. If we were going to have a high school, my dad just went to his high school reunion, his 40th high school reunion the other day. If my school were to have a high school reunion, I'm coming up on 20 years out of high school in the next couple of years, I wouldn't go. I have no reason to go. I'm not friends with any of these people. I don't need to catch up with you on your life. I just don't. So that's kind of a weird realization to come to in terms of being an adult. Like you realize that friendships kind of, your friendships from childhood kind of go the way of the dinosaur. As formative as they may have been for me, and as meaningful as they are to me looking back on them, still not something I'm necessarily interested in revisiting. I'm not like hunting down everybody from high school to hang out and be buddies and know what their kids are doing and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think when you're really young, and I'm talking like second grade or something, you're all doing this thing together, like you go on field trips as a class, and your lives are fairly similar. That's not true across the board. I was in a small town, and so we all really had very similar lives. It was easy for us all to be friends. We did everything together. And I think, like as you're saying, as you kind of get older, you start to learn things about yourself. You start to develop an identity. You start to kind of pick and choose some things. Like maybe this person isn't as like me as I thought. And I think a lot of it too is insecurities. You want to yoke yourself with people that you think would make you feel better about yourself, or you like things about them, and so you want to be their friend. I think a lot of my relationships, maybe in junior high, were kind of shallow like that because I really wanted them to like me, and so I was really nice to them and tried to like laugh at all their jokes. And it wasn't that they were bad people. They weren't deep friendships at all. And it wasn't until like probably my senior year in high school I got a really good group of close friends. And I think at that point, like I just kind of had learned that maybe something deeper was a little bit better. Maybe I didn't have to have a lot of superficial friendships. It was okay to have a few really meaningful friendships. And that's something that's kind of stuck with me, I think, into adulthood. I've had, living in lots of different places, there's been an ebb and flow of how many friends that might include you have these deep friendships with. And I think those friendships stay with me. I think, when I was in Australia, I had some friends that I was super close to, and obviously now we're not as connected as we were, but in my heart, like I would still consider them to be really close friends. But if you're asking me, like right now, who's like the one person I would call, it would be somebody that's local to me, somebody here, because now that I'm here, I have a different support group, and I have different needs as a person that I expect from my friends.
I guess that brings up kind of the next question in terms of looking at adult friendships. Yeah, I think friendships still kind of work the same way as adults in terms of someone who's local. I like what you said there, Carol, because it's just not Carol. Geez, Carol. Kara.
Tell me whatever.
Rewind, delete. Okay, rewinding. Edit that out. Boop. So yeah, I think Kara, what you said there is so right. Right on in terms of friendships for me tend to be people who are local, with the exception of a few people. There are a few people who I would consider fairly close friends because of the internet bringing them close. Like David. David and I have never met face to face, personally. You and I have, Kara, but David and I never have. But I would still consider David a very, very close friend, just because of the time we've spent together online, discussing ideas and discussing life, discussing not just stuff for like the Jacob sessions, but also stuff just like dating life, and here's how I'm feeling about this thing going on in the world or in my life right now, with my family or my kids, that kind of thing. And so there are very few exceptions where I would say I consider someone who is far away a friend. By and large, it's someone who is close by, and people who are in my adult life, I take very seriously people who are willing to make time for me. There are very few friends who make time for me. I was actually telling someone today, I said, I actually just met someone who lives not too far from me. She lives right down the street, literally. I can walk to her apartment from mine. I've been here a year and a half, and I have virtually zero friends in the city. Most of my friends, all of my friends, come in from outside of the city and spend time with me. My best friend, Justin, comes in for my birthday, pretty much no matter what. He comes in for that. He's come in for dinner. If I've dated someone new, he wants to meet them, he comes in for that. I've gone out to his house, those kinds of things. I've got my friend Brian, who he'll call me up, see what I'm doing, want to go to the restaurant. I got lunch. Let's go do that. Or, Calvin, I know you like riding bikes. Why don't you come up to Rochester? We'll ride bikes together. So I've done that. My buddy Tim, who's a busy youth pastor now, a busy worship pastor in a church downriver, he'll call me up. Hey, what are you doing? Want to hang out? And we'll hang out and we'll talk and we'll catch up. These are three people in my life who are geographically close to me, who make it a point to make time for me. And I was telling this person who lives down the road from me, I asked, hey, when are you available this week to hang out? And she said, I'm just busy. And she's been really, really, really busy. And I get it. As adults, we get busy. But she said, I feel like you're angry. And I said, no, I'm really just kind of, and it's a newer friendship. I said, I think I'm lamenting the fact that I thought because you're so close by that, friendship would just naturally happen, that we would just be able to hang out and do things. And so I value in my adult friendships, my adult relationships, people who make it a point to make time for me. And I think of the friends that I have chosen to keep close to me, they value that same thing. They value someone who calls them, someone who texts them, someone who says, hey, let's go grab lunch together, let's hang out together. We don't talk about anything huge. Let's just go ride a bike. Let's just go grab a meal. Let's go walk around downtown Detroit. I think I value those friendships the most as an adult. I'm not sure why. There's no hard and fast rule as to what makes a friendship. But for me, those are the things that I value, and there are very few people, I can count them on one hand, who have done that. Now, that's not to say that other people in my life aren't friends, but those are the people that I would consider friends, close, deep, meaningful friends, that if I found out, God forbid, one of them was killed or something horrible happened to them, I would lament for days. I would weep bitterly at the loss of their life, or something that's going on in their life, um, and the friendship.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Am I coming in loud and clear? Sorry, internet's just really acting up lately. Um, Calvin, a lot of stuff you said I really resonate with. I think that I was thinking about uh, when one's thinking about friendships, I sometimes find it's useful to think about where friendship came from. And I'm not talking about in any sort of divine sense. I'm just talking about a sociological development sense. People were either created or evolved in tribal units, communities. And your community, the time which it takes to support you either emotionally or physically, and you vice versa, is going to be how you create that sense of familiarity. In a large sense, for me, I would say the affection I feel toward my friends is very similar to the affection I feel towards close members of my family. Um, in Like I said, it's related to that sense of participating in a larger whole. Um, so for me, I mean, I think, and now that I'm older, um, it, the things I had when I was little haven't changed at all. It's definitively that sense of being, generally speaking, accepted into something. I don't need to be part of it. I just need to be accepted by it. And then I think in the one or two places where my friends go out of their way to include me in things, which I wasn't included in. Like one of my best friends in the world, John, he I'd say the point where he became the friend which he was to me was where he included me in his family Thanksgiving celebration. There was no reason to include me in a family celebration at all. We're not even really of the same culture background. He's middle class American. I'm weird. Not that I'm not middle class American, but I'm a really weird version of that. I actually don't fit in very well with that dynamic most times, I find. So the fact that he and then his family went out of the way to accommodate someone who I would say, at the end of the day, is just weird. Um, uh, that I think when they take me and include me in the tribe, which does involve taking time, um, is where I get the strongest sense of loyalty. That's something which has to be repaid. That there's a debt, a friendship, where repaying it is actually edifying to the person paying that. That it's a good thing. Um, I think that's another thing. Is I think that I'll see a lot of my friendships in terms of it's not obligation, but it's that the relationship carries a weight to it, and there's a thing to give to that relationship. And I would say the sense to which that exists and I'm able to fulfill my end of that, and at the same time I'm included, is the degree to which that friendship becomes powerful.
I think I would push back a little, and I would say that obligation is almost a great word. There, not in that, and I think obligation is safe to use in the context of the kind of relationships that you have and the kind of relationships that I have. Because when people think obligation in regards to friendship, most people think someone is going to come along and take advantage of that. Take advantage of the fact that you feel obligated to them. Like, well, if you're really my friend, you do this. But I think I could say I feel obligated to Justin. I feel obligated to Brian. I feel obligated to Tim in certain ways. Obviously, certain things come first. I have priorities. Like my daughter is, above everybody else in my life. But I feel obligated to them in certain ways. And I'm okay with that because I know that they would never take advantage of that obligation and use it lightly. Like, okay, if you were my friend, you would do this. I think a lot of people hear that when you use the word obligation. I'm okay with feeling obligated towards those friends because they've earned my obligation.
I think obligation is a healthy thing, even in any relationship, as long as it's accepted obligation and not forced obligation. For example,
right, and that's why I use that word. I'm okay with it because I've accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that it carries. I'd want to emphasize for viewers. I think that it carries that negative connotation because so often obligation is a word used to force someone to comply to your will. And what
Right.
it's supposed to be, obligation is something which you assent to in a relationship. At that point, it becomes obligation. It's an act of assent.
Well, it's another kind of submission, really. I mean, I think we're all, submitting to each other. It's you love somebody and you're choosing to let them persuade you, even if you don't really feel like it. I mean, it might be like an obligation sometimes, but a lot of times it's actually just submission. If you need that, you will have that.
I think, of course, it's the Christian thing to say, but you really can see a lot of parallels in the obligation assent relationship between people, and I think between humans and Christ. The obligation to God isn't. I mean, I'm not a Calvinist, but I would say even in Calvinist dogma, it doesn't have to be one of force. It's one of assent or submission to.
So, in this day and age, it's interesting in terms of how friendships work. And a few weeks ago, we talked about being on the internet and getting off Facebook and things like that. And that was, I've listened to that podcast like 4 or 5 times now, primarily because I like the sound of my own voice. But no, so I just as a reminder to slow down. And I have gotten since the podcast where I talked about getting off of Facebook and taking time away from Facebook, I have gotten back on Facebook, fallen into some of my old patterns, which kind of stinks, and I have to like kind of get off of Facebook again and rethink things or take the app off my phone for a little while and stuff like that. But whatever. Really, I feel like friendship has been changed in a way by the advent of digital media. It's really cool. I mean, it's really great for my friendships that I consider close, but I'm still geographically far away from them. I mean, Tim is downriver. Justin is all the way up in Fenton, Michigan, which is about 45 minutes. No, it's about an hour north of where I live. And Brian lives in Rochester Hills. We don't go to each other's places all that often, so we don't get to hang out all that often, even though I cherish their friendship, even though I feel obligated to them as a friend. But because of things like social media, I'm able to see, hey, here's what's going on in Tim's life as a youth pastor downriver. Oh, cool. He went on a trip to Cedar Point with his students, and he took a bunch of pictures. That's really cool. It's really great to see him growing in his role there and putting questions out into the world for his other Christian friends to answer and weigh in on, or just sharing his life about, this is what God has me doing. I love being able to kind of peer into the lives of the people I would consider close and stay connected with their life. So in that sense, I feel like friendship in the digital age is a good thing. But I also feel like friendship is, in a way, eroded by, and again, I don't want this podcast to be about social media again. It's about friendship. But I feel like friendship is eroded by the digital medium in some ways. Because I can't, sometimes I allow, and I go much longer than I'm really comfortable with, and I understand we're all busy, but I go longer than I'm comfortable with in seeing Tim or seeing Brian or seeing Justin because I kind of already know what's going on. I know what's going on in Justin's life because I see it on Facebook. I know what's going on in Brian's life because I see that he took the ALS challenge on Facebook, and I saw that Tim took his students to Cedar Point, or that he had a great worship service this morning. So I don't have to call them as much because hey, it's right there. I need to call and see how they're feeling about that. I don't need to, and so I feel like, in a way, I have to try that much harder and remember that's not our friendship. It's great that I can look in on that. It's like looking in their window, but it's not being in their home, if that makes sense. And so I feel like I get by in friendships, even my deep friendships, by looking in the window rather than stepping inside the home where I've already been invited. And so that friendship in the digital age, I find, is very, very difficult because it's no longer like, hey, you know what, we just grew up and grew apart, or we grew up and we're geographically separated from each other. There are these things that make us come near. Again, Kara is in Kalamazoo. I mean, David, you're in Chicago. I'm in Detroit. We are brought close to each other, but well, this isn't what I would call real friendship, even though I would consider you real friends, if that makes sense. I don't know how to qualify it because I don't want you guys to feel like Calvin's saying he's not my friend, because I would consider you both friends, which is
Yeah, I know it's
anyway.
a weird thing. I definitely wouldn't take it that way. I think that
Well, you should, David, because we're not friends.
we're not friends anymore. That's
We're not
just guys
friends
know
anymore.
that's happened on this
I'm taking my
podcast.
toys and I'm going home.
No, we need the microphones. Yeah, it is. It's always been uncanny to me how the digital age can create a sort of minimal investment in people's lives for maximum data return, which results in a sense of, or an actuality of shallow friendships. Um, I think that my best and dearest friends in the world all live in different states, except like one or two I've made recently here. Um, and like my good friend Trevor, we became the friends we were. We were suite mates for a while in college. We became the friends we were through just phone conversations. He was away in Georgia. We were both going through difficult times. We just talked and talked. Um, and it's not a common experience, but for me, um, the the friendship is neither more nor less real for being digital, um, as compared to in person. And I think that might be because when so I was watching, to give you example, Silence of the Lambs. Um, it seems like a weird topic, but it'll make sense in a second. They had a point where Hannibal Lecter is talking to her, and he's trying to psychologically disturb her, so he talks about her childhood. And he says where she was born, how she grew up, and how, the boys eventually found her and were, they were all into her, but she was just looking for a way to get out. He said it in a very R-rated way, so I'm not going to repeat it that way. And I actually had to get up and walk away and stop watching. Not because anything about the scene was disturbing to me, but because that sense of having a community where you had people who you grew up with, is so, it's just so alien and far gone. And it's not something which I wouldn't have wanted. It's more something I couldn't ever have. But I think for me, it's my sense evolved in such a way so that the voting presence physically in the community is just, it's not a thing. And I would imagine that anybody who was uprooted and translocated across cultures multiple times, even within America, could have similar sensations. A degree to which it would do that, I don't know. But yeah, for me, digital friends are as real friends, providing the conditions I spoke about earlier.
I would agree with you. I think that digital age makes friendships easier in a lot of ways. Certainly easier to slack sometimes. I mean, that's true. There are people that I just, like their statuses and probably could do more if I really wanted to engage those friendships. But in general, I think, yeah, it's a really great tool for me to keep up with my friends. I just know, from my personal experience, this last week was really rough for me. I was going through a lot of anxiety and just kind of threw something out on Facebook about, I would appreciate prayers about this. And I got so many messages from people, some that I'm close to and some that I'm really not, that were just very encouraging. Either they'd gone through something similar or just that they wanted me to know they were praying for me. And it was great. I guess I really felt like I was surrounded by a community even when I was home by myself, because I felt like it was a way to kind of reach out and feel like, I have friends. I might not see them every day, and we might not be best buddies anymore, but they do care about me, and that's nice to know that, if something happened to me, they would be upset, and vice versa. And also, I have I have a really good friend. She lives in Oklahoma, and she's just not even on Facebook. But our relationship at this point is almost completely text and email because she's busy, I'm busy. We have completely different lives. We were college roommates. We were like inseparable, and our lives couldn't be more different now. But like, she's still one of my dearest friends, and so our relationship is almost always like once every few weeks sending each other a text about something funny we saw that reminded us of the other person, or here's a song I heard, I think you'll like this, or just having a really rough week at work, and maybe if we didn't have our history, that might not be enough for like a really solid friendship. But because I know her so well and she knows me so well, that it feels like enough. I know that if she really needed something more than here's a funny limerick from times gone by, she would say it, and so would I. So I think the digital age makes it really. I'm so glad we have that connection because I don't know if we'd still be in touch if not.
Yeah, I guess. Oh gosh, it's so, and maybe it crosses over into an area where we're talking about, when we're talking about friendship versus talking about authority, you get into different things. Like, I'm not a big fan of churches that use video venues. As much as I like people like Mark Driscoll, I'm not a fan of his model of church because people, like, he preaches at one church and then all the other campuses play a video of him preaching. He's a dynamic speaker, but people are like, Mark Driscoll is my pastor. No, he's not. He's not your pastor. You're watching a video. He's no more your pastor than he's my pastor, when I download his podcast, okay? And so, I read a book called Flickering Pixels by a guy named Shane Hipps. I think he took over for Rob Bell when he left Mars Hill Church in Granville, Michigan, not to be confused with Mars Hill Church in Seattle, Washington, which is where Mark Driscoll preaches. But one of the things he said is, in the digital age, we afford people authority that they have not earned in our lives. And the way that I look at that in terms of friendship, because I don't want this to be a conversation about authority. The way I look at it in terms of friendship is, okay, I've got this digital medium, and yeah, it's great. We know the gains. Hey, you know what? I get to text my friend. I get to email my friend. It brings them close. I get to talk. I get to do this podcast with Kara. And I haven't seen you in a few years, but we've been friends for a while. We used to hang out. I used to come to the house every weekend when you guys had a communal house in Kalamazoo. And David, someone who I've never met, we're able to be friends and talk about life. But that's different than me being able to see your life on a day-to-day basis and really have investment in your life as a friend in that respect. I can't hug you, Kara. I can't, hug your son. I've never met your son. It's crazy how much time has passed since we've actually seen each other, right? Your son is up and walking. That means it's been at least 2 years, right? At least. David, you know what? We've never shook hands or hugged. As much as I want to come to, I keep planning. I want to come to Chicago. I want to come to Chicago and actually meet you because technically we haven't met yet. But we have this, at the same time I would say we have this deep abiding friendship. So it's weird. I have this tension of this is not friendship, but it is friendship. And I still have to say I feel like this is an anemic form of friendship. The gains are obviously known as bringing people close who have never been close to me or bringing people close to me who I would otherwise lose touch with. But at the same time, it's not the same as you being there. Paul writing a letter to the church at Corinth is very different than Paul walking into the church at Corinth, if that makes any sense.
Totally. I think that actually part of it, and Calvin, and maybe that this is the part of which is missing to you, you, with your online friends, do not have to be vulnerable. They don't get to see, by being present, you when you're about to cry. You can just withdraw. They don't need to see you at your highs, you at your lows. You are online.
Well, that's because I don't cry. I don't cry at all.
Yeah, no, guys, we never cry. It's just a thing.
Nope. My tears cure cancer. Too bad I've never cried.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Norris. Reborn.
Who? Who's Chuck Norris? I don't know who this is.
You're joking.
Who?
Chuck Norris?
Totally kidding.
Okay, good. I'm like, I mean, you can't be in like into.
I also have some swampland in Florida to sell you.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I have blonde hair. I'm gullible. But anyway, the point of it is that you don't need to be vulnerable. And I think that part of friendship is trust. And one of the biggest ways which you can show someone trust is to be vulnerable with them, to invest in them with your vulnerability, and just see how they respond. I think that a lot of growing up, we learn that that's, generally speaking, an incredibly unwise idea, which is why, as we get older, friendships are more rare. And also why it can be that an online friendship doesn't feel the same as a in-person friendship because there's not the same vulnerability.
I can agree with that. I can definitely agree with that. Or I can be vulnerable to a degree, and you could give me counsel, and then I could walk away, and you never see whether I walked that counsel out or not. Now, I mean, I could do that here.
For me, it wouldn't make a difference. Like, advice is there. If you want it, I'll give it. But I don't expect people to take my advice.
I guess I could do that whether you're here or not. Like, if you were my neighbor across the street who happened to be a Christian who was my friend and was like, you should probably do this. This is what I feel God calling you to do or whatever, and I've asked you for godly counsel, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I don't. I could do that right here, the same as I could do it online. But I guess, I think there's a quantifiable difference on a number of different levels, one that you just brought up and the ones that I brought up earlier, for sure. But definitely don't. So it's an anemic form of friendship, but it's friendship nonetheless.
Exactly.
And the sad thing is, with this anemic form of friendship, I kid you not, I have many, many, many people who go to my church here in the city. None of them have invited me to their place for dinner or to hang out. And I'll see things on like Facebook of them hanging out with other people from the church. I'm like, I live right across the street from you. Like, how crazy? And people ask, well, have you shown yourself friendly, Calvin? Yes. I have invited people over. And then at the last minute, oh, someone's sick, or I can't make it, and so it's weird that while I say in the digital age, this is an anemic form of friendship, it's not the same. It sometimes feels like it's all I have. I remember I had a terrible roommate when I was in seminary, and so I bought an Xbox. And I played on Xbox Live so that I could talk to complete strangers, because my roommate, who was separated from my room by a very thin wall, wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't be my friend. And the older I get, the less I'm concerned with whether people like me, and the more concerned I am with whether people respect me. But at the end of the day, I still really feel like I want to be liked. I want to have friends. I want people who are going to do life with me.
There's something to be said for that, Calvin. I mean, I think you're right on. It's a lot easier to have those digital friendships because, like you said, I mean, you don't have to be present with that person. You don't have to look them right in the eye when they ask you a hard question, like, why don't you want to be my friend? You can sit and formulate an answer and then respond back when you thought of something clever. I think you're right. I think that is definitely, it kind of goes back to the whole social media podcast we did, but I mean, there's absolutely value in human face-to-face interaction, and I think it's normal that you would feel like you're missing something if you're not getting a lot of that. I think we're built to do life together, not just digitally. We're built to do it together all the time. I mean, I think that includes your roommates and your neighborhood and your coworkers, and it's not really something we value as a society anymore. I think we really value independence. We really value people being able to do it on their own and not needing help. We kind of view it as a weakness if we ask people to be there for us, or just ask people just to be our friend, just to want some companionship. But I think that's something that society values, and it's wrong. I think It actually shows a lot more courage and a lot more strength to put yourself out there and say, you know what? Like, we're all here together. We're all lonely together. Like, why don't we just like look at the person next to us and say, let's not be lonely anymore. Like, let's be friends. Why are we doing this to ourselves?
Because I need to know what's trending on Facebook. I need to know what's happening on Yahoo. I need to know what's happening on. I need to know. I need to know. I need to look at the ice bucket challenges. I need to look at the ice bucket challenge fails. I need to click on the clickbait. I need to do anything that keeps me from having real friendship.
I don't know how much social media actually plays into that, because I mean, I think part of it, I think social media, it relates to the issue of vulnerability and trust, because the answer to we're all alone, we're all together, why don't we all just be friends? And the answer to me, spring to my mind, is because I don't trust people. I stopped trusting people a long time ago, and I can't bring myself to do it anymore unless they've shown themselves trustworthy in definitive ways. I just can't bring myself to do it. And I think that sharing things like the ALS, am I getting that right, challenge, a lot of the trending stuff on Facebook, I know that 90% of my Facebook has literally nothing to do with what's going on inside my head at the time where I post it. It just doesn't. It's there as a buffer to keep me invulnerable, to disguise what's actually going on in my head. And like I said, online you can have friendships where you're invulnerable, which means that you don't need to trust the person. In real life, when you get 12 people in a room, why can't they be friends? The answer is because 6 of those people are going to be enemies with each other. Not because they're bad people, but just because the way cultures, the way humans develop, some people will be your friends, and some people will be your enemies. And that's why you have to love both of them. And I think that allowing for that to be the case is important to be able to have real friendships.
And that's where I'm going to end the podcast. That was a good final thought. I think that was good.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I got to get ready for a much more heated podcast.
Good luck.
Yeah, so I get to talk about black kids being shot while unarmed. That's going to be.
Calvin, if you're at all enraged about that, I just want to let you know in advance, you and I are on the same page. If you're enraged about it.
Are you wearing a Batman shirt?
Of course, dude. Fucking Batman.
I have that same shirt. I have that same shirt.
Yes, it's the same one.
Yeah, I have the same one.
There you go.
Yeah, it's a good one. See, great minds.
So, by the way, I have made an executive decision without you, David.
Okay.
I am thinking that I'd like to make Kara a permanent fixture
I
in
like
the
that.
podcast. I think she is great and is able to talk about a variety of topics, and is a little bit more outspoken than our previous female co-host.
Yeah, she was pretty reserved.
Although I loved her.
Which is great.
But because the three of us seem to be consistently available, I mean, obviously, like I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to do
no lives.
Yeah, we have,
Calvin,
yeah, whatever. Yeah, you have a kid. You have a life.
My mom just called me. I want to return her for our next podcast. Can I step away and do that real quick?
Are you going to be on the next podcast?
Am I not?
I wasn't planning on it. I'd love for you to be on it.
I mean, I can't.
Kara's not going to be on that one.
I'm not. I'm going to go for sure.
I'd love to have you on it.
Perfect. Let's do it. I had assumed that it was going to be.
Yeah, Kara's like, no.
I don't know what I have to contribute.
No, David, I do want you on it.
Perfect. All right, give me 10 minutes to call my mom.
You'll have something to contribute.
Perfect.
All right, caller. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.